Hey everybody, this is Mark Kelly from University Financial Strategies. So we're all, many of us are probably sitting at home right now, and there's a lot of fear out there in terms of what's going to happen between the coronavirus and then obviously what's going to happen with your finances. And one of the consequences of the coronavirus is that with the stoppage in work is that unfortunately a lot of people may lose their jobs this week if they have not lost them already. We're probably looking at one of the largest unemployment numbers in our country's history, and so I thought it would be good to kind of share a little bit of information about how to not live in fear and really just have a plan, and how a budget, a simple budget, can actually help you get through this period. I remember going through the credit crisis of 2008, 2009, and I was laid off from work, and it's frightening. So what I wanted to share with everybody is that how I was able to use kind of some planning I did as I was learning that I was going to lose my job, to kind of figure out a plan of how to use, take stock of what I have, and get through that time period. And I think the most important thing I want to make sure people understand is that we've gone through a lot of these events in our history. We've gone through the credit crisis, we've had the dot-com period, we've had the '87 crash, we've had all different things. We've had World War Wars, we've had plenty of things, September 11th, right? So all those things we've gone through, and as a country we've survived. But it's one of the things that I always think about is the amount of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. It's almost 80% of people, and so I thought this would be helpful for people. So as you may be aware, I'm actually a Dave Ramsey master coach, and so I actually help people with coaching in terms of how to use their money more effectively. Okay, also I'm a certified financial planner, so I kind of think about all the things that come together with your money. But in terms of, if you have not heard Dave Ramsey is one of the most listened to radio and TV personalities out there. He focuses on how to use your money correctly, and so Dave has come up with 7 baby steps. And these are the baby steps. And so a lot of times people don't have the money to fund an emergency fund. So if they're out of work, even for a couple of weeks, it can be challenging for them. And so I think it's important that as we look at our downtime in this quarantine period, perhaps people aren't going out and spending as much money either, because maybe the restaurants are closed. Maybe they're not driving to work, they're not going out to lunch. They're doing a lot of different things, and so this may be an opportunity to actually think about how can you leverage that time to help maybe put an emergency fund in place, maybe take stock of what you have and how you're using your money. But I do think it's important to actually start thinking about a budget. We may have a tough couple quarters ahead of us. I do believe that the economy will turn around in 2021, but I do think that it's a good plan to have a budget and think about how you're using your money. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So this is kind of a cash flow plan that we look at, and it's really just a matter of entering what we want to start with what your take-home pay is, okay, or what money you have if you're out of a job, or maybe you're cutting back on things. Maybe you're living off of one income as opposed to two. You want to look at, okay, what do you have available beyond your retirement assets, or just the cash. Maybe you have an emergency fund. Okay, now is the time maybe you could use that emergency fund. But what we want to do is figure out what you have coming in, and then we're going to apply that against what you're using the money for. So I'll show you in a second. So we're basically going to have you figure out where your money went. So maybe prior to the quarantines, that you look at, okay, how much am I spending on various things, and then you're going to compare the boxes. So let's take a look at that. So I think it's what I always say to people is it's important if you're married for both people to actually sit down and look at their budget and figure out what they have coming in, and then they can look at what they've spent on various things, for whether it be giving, savings, their house, maybe the mortgage, and so we want to look at those right now and figure out, okay, for each of these things, we want to give a name to every dollar you're spending. So if I have $2,500 a month to spend right now as a take home, then I can't spend more than $2,500. And so for each of those dollars that I have from income, I'm going to put in my budget where that money should go. So I should be looking at how much am I spending on electricity or my utilities, how much am I spending on housing, transportation. Those are the most important things right now. Those are, we call things like it's called the four walls. The four walls are food, utilities, shelter, and transportation. So those are things that we want to prioritize right now. And so those are the first things you would attack on your budget. So you would allocate that money to those things first, and then you're going to look at everything else and figure out, okay, what can you spend your money on? And that's how we look at it. Here we have this form which allows us to kind of look at everything in here. The nice thing what we're looking at is these little envelopes here on this form basically allows you to figure out, these are options for if you want to use cash. The reason why we use cash sometimes is because if you have cash in your wallets or in your purse, and you have to spend it, you're more likely to think about it than if we use a credit card. And that's the real problem with credit cards, is that we're actually just taking our card, either swiping it or we're inserting it, or now we have on our phones, we can actually just pay with Apple Pay. Okay, all those things are make it really easy to spend money. And so for the most part, most people really don't know where their money is going. And so that's why we want to be what we say intentional. And so that's where budgeting and tracking your money comes into play. I would say that a lot of people may think that budgeting is not a fun event, and it's going to restrain me from doing things. But the reality is, I will tell you, is that most people, when they start budgeting, they will actually, they may be able to do a lot more of the things they want to do, because now they're being intentional in how they're using their money. And that's the important key word with anything. I would say it's being intentional and actually having a plan for how to use your money. And what it comes down to is once we add all these things up, we're going to have the income sources and then the spending, and then compare the two. And really what we wanted to get to is what's called a $0 budget, meaning that we're only spending what we're bringing in. And that's the important thing. I listed in my blog some other suggestions, but I just wanted to share this video to kind of explain kind of how budgeting takes place. And I will actually post this document on my on the blog as well. And if you want to look at that, you're welcome to. I think it's really important to leverage the time to make sure you have a plan to get through this. And I would say don't wait until something happens to you, because then it's usually too late. That's not planning. Okay. I always say it's also like, would you go on a road trip to someplace without a map? Nowadays we have Google Maps or Apple Maps, and we just plug in the destination where we want to go. Okay, and then that'll take us there. So budgeting is a lot like that, because if you're figuring out what your destination is how much you have coming in versus going in, that's kind of like from location to location, and that makes sure we get to this place where you want to be. I don't think many people today would really survive without Apple Maps or Google Maps to tell them how to get there. So if you think about that, that's kind of like what budgeting is. So it just really empowers you to get to the right place with your money. If you have any questions, I have other resources on my website that may be of help to you, but wanted to just share that with everybody. I realize that this is kind of a difficult time, and hopefully I'll be posting some other videos, but I just wanted to share that with everybody to make sure that they had something to think about.